Have you ever messed around with those online calculators, like the ones that tell you when you can retire? I kind of have a thing for them, but today we're going to go deeper.
Deeper than your average retirement
Way
tools.
deeper. We're diving into this whole FIRE thing. Financial independence, retire early.
Yeah, fire.
This seriously cool tool that engaging data made.
Yeah, you know what's really fascinating about this calculator is that it doesn't just give you a date, It actually helps you understand what you can do before retirement to reach your goals like faster,
It's all about taking control.
right? Taking control of your financial future.
Love that. Okay, so I'm just going to put it out there. I'm a total sucker for anything that lets me see my financial goals and stuff. We've got a bunch of articles and blog posts about this calculator.
Oh, yeah.
And even comments from people who actually use it, so we're getting all the inside scoop
Big insights
on
too.
how it works and what makes it so powerful.
Exactly. And this isn't just about like managing money once you're retired. This calculator is specifically made to help you figure out how to even get enough to retire early.
Got it. So it's all about the build-up.
The build-up phase.
So how does this thing actually work? What do you need to know to get started?
Well, you start with something pretty basic. How much do you think you'll need to spend each year in retirement, like to live comfortably?
That makes sense, but everyone's retirement looks different. How do you even start to guess that number so far in advance?
That's where the calculator gets really smart. It uses real dollars, meaning it adjusts for inflation. So think about it this way. Will $50,000 buy you the same things in like 10 years? Probably not. This calculator factors in inflation, so you're not planning with like imaginary numbers.
Right.
You're working with the current buying power.
Ooh, that's pretty neat. It's like having an inflation crystal ball. So I plug in my spending, and then what?
Then you got to think about your withdrawal rate.
Withdrawal rate.
Yeah, the percentage of your savings you'll safely withdraw each year in retirement.
I've heard of that 4% rule.
The 4% rule.
Is that what you talk about?
Exactly. The 4% rule is a popular guideline, but the Engaging Data site actually has a whole post explaining safe withdrawal rates and like the logic behind them. We'll make sure to link that for you. What's important here is that the calculator lets you customize this rate based on your risk tolerance and your goals.
Got it. So let's say I've got my spending and withdrawal rate figured out. Where does the calculator go from there?
This is where it gets really interesting. You can start adding in other income or expenses you expect over time. Things like a mortgage payment that'll eventually go away, or college tuition for your kids, or even an inheritance.
Oh, wow.
You can like map it all out and see how it impacts your overall timeline.
Wait, so it's like a choose your own financial adventure. You can actually model out different life scenarios.
Exactly. It's super flexible, and all of this gets plugged into the calculator's main formula, which is actually pretty simple. End of year savings equals your previous savings times 1 plus the growth rate plus your annual savings.
Okay, I'm seeing how this all fits together, but I'm guessing there's more to it than meets the eye. What are the key things in that formula that really drive the results?
You're right. There are two elements in that formula that are really important, your savings rate and your growth rate.
All right, break those down for me. What do those actually mean?
Your savings rate is basically the percentage of your income that you save each year. It's calculated by subtracting your annual spending from your annual income and then dividing that number by your annual income.
So the more you save, the faster you reach your FIRE target.
That's part of it, but here's where it gets interesting. Your growth rate is mostly determined by how you invest those savings. This is where things like stock market returns, bonds, and other investments come in.
So the calculator takes into account how those investments perform over time.
It does, and it gives you 3 different ways to project those returns, which we'll get into later. You can use a fixed percentage look at historical cycles of stock and bond returns, or even run a Monte Carlo simulation.
Hold on, a Monte Carlo simulation. I'm intrigued, but also a little scared.
I know, it sounds fancy, but it's really cool. It runs thousands of simulations using historical data and variable returns to show you all the potential outcomes you could experience.
So it's not just showing me one possible path, it's showing me a ton of possibilities.
Exactly. And the results are displayed in percentiles, which help you understand the likelihood of different outcomes. Think of percentiles as a ranking from best to worst. If your plan is in the 75th percentile, that means it did better than 75% of the simulated outcomes. It gives you a much better understanding of how strong your plan is.
So if I'm someone who doesn't like taking risks, I might want to see my plan land in a higher percentile, right? It means there's a higher chance I'll actually reach my goals.
You got it. This is where the calculator can really help you personalize his plan. You can tweak your inputs and see how it affects your results, which gives you the information you need to make good decisions.
This is amazing. I'm starting to think I could actually plan my own early retirement with this thing. But let's say I've plugged in all my numbers, run the simulations, and I'm looking at the results. What's the biggest takeaway? What should I be focusing on?
Well, one of the most surprising things from this calculator is that early on in your journey, your savings rate is actually more important for reaching your FIRE target than investment returns.
Really, you're telling me consistently saving a good chunk of my income is more important than picking the right stocks?
Especially in those early years, yes. It's all about compounding. While investment growth is important, you need a solid foundation of savings to really take advantage of that growth over time. This calculator really makes that point clear.
That's so interesting. I always thought it was all about finding the next big stock, but you're saying that developing good saving habits is actually the key.
Absolutely. Disciplined saving is the foundation of any good FIRE plan. This calculator just shows you how much of a difference it makes.
Okay, so now I'm thinking, how can this calculator help me actually build better saving habits? Does it just show me the numbers and leave me to figure it out on my own?
Not at all. This is where one of the best features comes in the sensitivity analysis.
Ooh, I love a good what-if scenario. Tell me more.
The sensitivity analysis lets you see how changing your current spending or your expected stock market returns impacts your overall timeline. It's like playing with the controls and seeing how it affects the whole thing.
So I could test out spending less on coffee every day and see if that actually helps me retire a year earlier.
Exactly. You can test out different things and see how your choices make a difference. It's all about understanding those levers and how they affect your overall plan.
This is incredible. I'm feeling so empowered just thinking about all the possibilities. I bet there are people listening right now who are dying to try out this calculator and start playing with the numbers.
I bet. And that's exactly what we want you to do. This deep dive has given you a glimpse of how powerful the FIRE calculator is, but it's really just the start. The real magic happens when you start putting in your own numbers and figuring out what's possible for you.
So what would you say to those listeners who are ready to take the plunge and start their own FIRE journey?
Go to the Engaging Data website, check out the calculator, and don't be afraid to experiment. Try different scenarios, see how your choices affect your timeline, and figure out what you can achieve.
I love that. And I have one last thought for our listeners. Imagine this. If you could increase your savings rate by just 1% each year, how much sooner could you reach your FIRE target?
That's a great question to think about. The best part of this calculator is that it lets you answer those what-if questions yourself and see how even small changes can make a big difference.
It's like a tool for taking control of your finances. It puts the power of planning and projecting right in your hand.
Exactly. And that's something we should all be excited about.
Absolutely. So go explore the FIRE calculator and start designing your dream life. We can't wait to hear what you find out.
Happy calculating.
Okay, so before we got sidetracked, we were talking about those 3 ways this FIRE calculator projects your investment returns.
Yeah.
Let's break them down.
Okay.
What's like the easiest way?
The simplest way is to just use a fixed percentage for your returns. Basically, you pick an average return you expect for stocks and bonds,
Okay.
and the calculator uses that for the whole projection.
That seems pretty simple, but how accurate is that really? I mean, the market doesn't just grow at a steady rate, right?
You're right. Using a fixed percentage can be helpful for getting a general idea, but it doesn't show you the ups and downs of the real market. That's where the historical cycles mode comes in.
Okay, so tell me about that one. How does that historical cycles thing work?
So instead of using a fixed percentage, this mode uses actual historical market data. For your projections, it basically simulates all kinds of different market scenarios like bull markets, bear markets, and everything in between. So you get a more realistic view of how your portfolio could do over time.
That sounds a lot more like sophisticated, I guess. But isn't the market always changing? How could what happened in the past really tell us what's going to happen in the future?
That's a great question, and it's true that past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But by looking at how the market has acted over long periods of time, we can at least get an idea of the range of possibilities. And that brings us to the most powerful projection mode, the Monte Carlo simulation.
Oh yeah, I've been waiting for this one. Remind me how this Monte Carlo thing works and why it's so special.
Okay, so picture this. You run thousands of different scenarios, each with slightly different market conditions and returns. That's basically what the Monte Carlo simulation does.
Wow.
It uses statistics to come up with a whole bunch of potential outcomes based on historical data and probability.
So it's not just showing me one possible path. It's like showing me a whole bunch of them.
Exactly, and it shows the results in percentiles, which help you understand how likely different outcomes are. Think of percentile like a ranking from best to worst. So if your plan is in the 75th percentile, it means it did better than 75% of all the scenarios.
Okay.
It gives you a much better understanding of how solid your plan is.
So if I'm like really afraid of risk, I'd probably want to see my plan in a higher percentile, right? Because it means there's a higher chance I'll actually get to my goals.
Exactly. This is where the calculator can really help you make your plan personal. You can change your inputs and see how it affects your results, and that gives you the information you need to make smart decisions.
This is blowing my mind. I'm starting to think I could actually plan for early retirement with this thing. But let's say I've put in all my info, run the simulations, and I'm looking at the results. What's the main thing I should take away from it? What should I be focusing on?
Well, one of the most surprising things this calculator shows is that early on, your savings rate is actually more important for reaching your FIRE target than your investment returns.
Really? Are you saying that consistently saving a big chunk of my income is like more important than getting lucky in the stock market?
Especially the beginning, yeah. It's the power of compounding. While investment growth is important, you got to have a good base of savings to really make the most of that growth over time. This calculator really highlights that.
That is so interesting. I always thought the key was picking the right stocks, but you're saying that having good saving habits is actually the secret weapon.
Totally. Being disciplined about saving is like the foundation of any successful FIRE plan. And this calculator makes it super clear how much of a difference it makes.
Okay, so now I'm wondering, how can this calculator actually help me get better at saving? Does it just show me numbers and then I'm on my own?
Not at all. This is where one of its best features comes in, the sensitivity analysis.
Ooh, I love playing what if. Tell me more.
The sensitivity analysis lets you see how changing your spending habits or your expected stock market returns affects your overall timeline. You can kind of play around with different things and see what happens.
So, like, I could see what happens if I stopped buying coffee every day, and if that would actually let me retire a year earlier.
Exactly. You can experiment with different scenarios and see how your choices affect things. It's about understanding what you can control and how it impacts your whole plan.
This is wild. I'm feeling so empowered just thinking about what I could do. I bet there are people listening who are so ready to try out this calculator
I bet.
and start playing with all the numbers.
That's what we want. This deep dive has given you a taste of what the FIRE calculator can do, but it's really just the beginning. The real fun starts when you plug in your own numbers and see what's possible for you.
So what would you say to those listeners who are ready to jump in and start their own FIRE journey?
Go to the Engaging Data website, try out the calculator, and just have fun with it. Try different things, see how your choices affect your timeline, and figure out what you can do.
I love that. And one last thought for everyone listening. Think about this. What if you could bump up your savings rate by just 1% every year? How much faster could you reach your FIRE goal?
That's a great question. The cool thing about this calculator is that it lets you find out for yourself and see how even small changes can make a real difference.
It's like a tool for taking charge of your money. It gives you the power to plan and see into the future.
Exactly. And that's pretty amazing if you ask me.
Absolutely. So go out there, check out the FIRE calculator, and start making your dream life happen. We want to hear all about what you discover.
Happy calculating.
You know, after all this talk about FIRE, I'm really feeling like I need to take another look at my own financial plan. This calculator sounds like it can really open up some doors.
Yeah, totally. It really shows you that we have more control over our money than we think. Like, we can make choices today that will shape our future.
It's not just about seeing the path, it's about having the tools to actually build it. And for everyone listening who's ready to get started on their own FIRE journey, we'll put a link to the Engaging Data FIRE calculator in the show notes.
Definitely. And, as you're checking out this calculator and thinking about your own FIRE goals, remember that financial planning is about more than just the numbers.
That's true. It's about something much bigger.
It's about making sure your money is aligned with what's important to you. Like, what are your values and your goals? It's about figuring out what really matters to you and then using your money to build a life that reflects those things.
That's such a good point. FIRE isn't just about retiring early. It's about building a life where you have the freedom to do what you love and live on your own terms.
Exactly. So as you're working with those numbers and trying out different scenarios, don't forget to ask yourself, what kind of life am I really trying to create? What makes me happy and fulfilled?
Because in the end, financial independence isn't just about money. It's about having the resources and the freedom to create a life that has meaning and makes you feel good.
And that's definitely something worth working towards.
Absolutely. So go for it, explore the FIRE calculator, and start designing your dream life. We're excited to see what you come up with.
Happy calculating.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the Engaging Data FIRE calculator. We hope you learned something new and feel inspired to take control of your financial future.
We had a blast exploring this topic with you, and we can't wait to bring you more fascinating deep dives in the future.
Until then, keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those fires burning bright.
Catch you next time.